Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into what's honestly one of the most fascinating corporate dramas playing out in global business right now. We're talking about the Tata Group. This is the sprawling conglomerate that practically built the modern Indian economy. But right now, this 150-year-old giant is staring down a massive, incredibly high-stakes pivot. So think about this. What actually happens when a 150-year-old giant, a company famous for heavy industries like steel and cars, suddenly decides to bet its entire future on highly competitive, cash-burning tech? Well, you get friction. A massive, classic tug-of-war between old-school financial discipline and aggressive, new world expansion.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap to untangling this whole boardroom drama. 1. A giant at a crossroads. 2. The billion-dollar bets. 3. The Guardian's pushback. 4. Leadership on the line. 5. The great IPO debate. And finally, 6. The future of Tata.
Section 1. A giant at a crossroads, transitioning to a tech-led future.
Right. So to really grasp the urgency here, we got to look at the timeline. Back in 2022, Tata made a huge splash when they acquired Air India from the government. Fast forward a bit to late May 2026, and the Tata Sons board gets a major update from their top execs all about these long-term investment strategies. And that brings us to the real crescendo of the story, June 8, 2026. This is the date for a highly anticipated, seriously high-stakes meeting of the Tata Trusts. Now remember, they aren't just any regular shareholder. They literally hold the controlling stake in Tata Sons. And on June 8th, they're sitting down to figure out exactly where all the money is going.
Section 2. The billion-dollar bets, Tata's loss-making ventures.
So, the obvious question is, where exactly is all this capital bleeding out? Well, let's look at the heavy hitters. Take Air India. Tata is pouring massive amounts of cash into fleet modernization, turning operations around, and basically trying to overhaul the entire customer experience. Then you've got Tata Digital and semiconductors. I mean, these are completely new frontiers for them, and they require immense cash burns with notoriously long waiting periods before you see even a single dime of profit. Add in a bunch of newer consumer tech ventures, and wow, it's just a staggering amount of money going out the door all at once.
Section 3. The Guardian's pushback. Tata Trusts demand discipline. In this situation, it creates a massive philosophical divide. On one end of the rope, you've got the Tata Trusts. Their main priority is protecting the legacy. For them, that means strict financial discipline, keeping a tight lid on increasing investment commitments and basically reining in these delayed profitability timelines. Why? Because they absolutely need to maintain their philanthropic structure. But then, on the exact opposite end, Tata Sons management is pulling hard for the future. They're arguing, pretty forcefully I might add, that these capital-intensive expansions aren't just nice to have. They're the absolute only way to survive and dominate the next century.
Because of all this tension, everything basically boils down to the number 3. Noel Tata, who's a key figure within the trusts, has reportedly put his foot down and demanded a strict 3-year business plan. No more vague, pie-in-the-sky promises of some tech utopia down the line. They want a concrete 36-month roadmap focused laser-tight on operational turnarounds, disciplined capital allocation, and hard profitability for all these heavy-loss divisions.
Section 4. Leadership on the line. Chairman N. Chandrasekaran's future.
Now, this June 8th meeting isn't just about crunching numbers on a spreadsheet. It's really about the guy leading the charge. Chairman N. Chandrasekaran is currently looking down the barrel of a possible third term. And how well he and his team defend these massive business plans, that's going to directly determine if he stays in the driver's seat. His supporters are rallying around a specific defense. They argue that these aren't reckless spending sprees. They call them long-term strategic bets designed to position Tata Group in sectors expected to dominate India's future economy. Basically, to his defenders, getting into aviation, semiconductors, and digital commerce isn't some luxury. It's absolutely table stakes for survival.
Section 5. The Great IPO Debate. Should Tata Sons go public?
Okay, to really understand why an IPO is even on the table here, we kind of have to translate some dense regulatory jargon. So the Reserve Bank of India, the RBI, instituted what they call upper-layer NBFC norms. What does that actually mean? Well, essentially, they're regulatory guidelines that put an immense amount of pressure on certain massive, non-banking financial companies exactly like Tata Sons, to publicly list on the stock exchange. The RBI wants way more oversight and transparency for entities of this sheer size. So whether they like it or not, the regulatory clock is ticking loudly, forcing Tata to have this incredibly uncomfortable conversation.
So why go public in the first place? Well, an IPO would immediately inject a massive wave of fresh capital to help fund those billion-dollar tech bets we talked about earlier. Plus, it satisfies those governance transparency demands and offers shareholder monetization. It sounds like a win-win, right? But the cautious trustees are pushing back super hard. And the reason is that a public listing completely mutates the company's DNA. It brings in these incredibly stringent disclosure requirements. Imagine being a giant conglomerate historically controlled by quiet, philanthropic trusts, and suddenly you're answering to Wall Street-style investors who demand quarterly profits. That is a terrifying prospect for them.
Section 6. The future of Tata. Stakes and outcomes.
So as the dust settles on this showdown, what's actually on the table? First off, the era of handing out blank checks, yeah, that's likely over. Expect way greater oversight on capital allocation moving forward. Second, we're definitely going to see strictly revised profitability targets for those tech and aviation businesses, along with much stronger internal governance mechanisms. But honestly, the biggest thing is the board's decision on Chairman Chandrasekaran's continuity. That's going to be the ultimate signal. Do they back his aggressive, tech-heavy vision, or are they slamming on the brakes? Oh, and finally, we'll find out if those IPO discussions are being quietly swept under the rug and delayed, or if they're rapidly accelerating.
And that leaves us with one massive overarching question. Because let's be real, this June 8 meeting is not just some routine quarterly review. It's a full-blown battle for the soul of India's largest conglomerate. Tata's footprint is so huge that whatever the outcome is, it's going to ripple outward and shape the entire trajectory of India's industrial strategy. Are they going to successfully leap into the future, or will the immense weight of their 150-year legacy pull them back? It's a cliffhanger, and we will absolutely be watching very closely. Thanks so much for joining me for